You are listening to LOA Recon with the Good Vibe coach Jeanette Ma, where we dissect the ins and outs and the art and science of conscious creation, all intended to amp up your manifesting game. Let's have some fun together. So guys, this is my crackhead neighbor story, and it is one of my favorite personal manifesting achievements. You'll understand why when you hear it. And it's not because it happened in the blink of an eye, and it's not because it was $1 million manifested out of the blue. It's my favorite story I don't know my favorite story. It's definitely my top 3 list of favorite manifesting stories. And I use this one a lot when I'm working with clients, when they're doing this routine where they want to manifest some change out there so they can feel better in here. I'll tell them this story. Or when someone's beating themselves up because they realize they've been in a bad vibrational routine, they say, I should have known better. I'll tell this story. But you know what? I really like this story because it emphasizes how ridiculous it is for us to sell anyone short. And I'm going to share this one with you, just intending that it'll give you some inspiration to put this sort of manifesting magic to work in your own life, wherever you see an opportunity for it. So here's how this went down. I was working as an LOA coach, but I was fairly new. That's my little disclaimer. I was fairly new. I was working from home though. And I lived next door to the sweetest woman you would ever want to meet in your entire life. She was seriously super, super, super sweet old lady. And I loved and adored her. She's probably one of my favorite neighbors I've ever had in my entire life. Okay, well, one day her grandson came to live with her because he had been in jail for some sort of drug charge. And while he was in jail, his mom died. So when he got out, he came to live with his grandma, Carolyn, and became my new neighbor. And this guy, he was not good news for the neighborhood. In a wide variety of ways, he was not good news. He not only was doing drugs, but he was also selling drugs. So the kind of people that he brought to the neighborhood weren't the kind of people you like to see coming to your neighborhood. And he was also mentally unstable, and he wasn't taking his meds. So I don't know how much of his behavior was that he was just mean and angry and hateful, and how much of it was just like mental instability. But the guy wasn't right in the head. And some examples of that, just so you know what I'm dealing with. This was a high contrast situation for me. He wasn't just, an irritating neighbor. He was a dangerous guy. He was training his German Shepherd that he stole. He stole someone's purebred puppy. Oh my gosh, this dog was a freaking adorable. And here he was training his puppy, who she grew into be a big dog. German Shepherds are not small dogs. He was training her to kill my cats. And the way he treated this dog, it was so hard for me to see. I'm a huge animal lover. And the way he treated that dog, it was just hard to see. But that was probably the least of the bad things about Alex. He lived in a tent in the backyard with his girlfriend, and they fought all night long, screaming at each other, other than the times when he was doing his drug deals, which he did right outside my bedroom window. It was on his driveway, right outside my bedroom window. And I have a little story going about how I'm not myself if I don't get proper sleep. So sleep-deprived Jeanette is not something anyone wants to experience. And after a couple weeks, I was like, Alex, look, I get it. You got to make a living, but could you please be more quiet? And oh my gosh, he just took pleasure in knowing that he was causing me pain. He would be more loud. He would laugh. He'd go, ha, 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 as a new customer would pull up. He'd make sure I heard it. My blankety blank blank neighbor hates it when I wake her up. Da, da, da. I mean, it just made it worse for me to ask him to be quiet. But the guy, when he would drive down the street, if he saw kids playing in their front yard, he would swerve onto the parking strip, pretending like he was trying to run over them. So parents were afraid to let their kids play in the front yard with him around. And he had this vehicle that was some kind of crazy illegal. I don't know how you could make a vehicle be as loud as this one was. I mean, it seemed like more than just not having a muffler. It was so loud. that when he would fire it up, I knew where he was going, what part of town, because you could hear it for like 2 minutes afterwards. And I'm working from home as a life coach on the phone. It was so loud, even with all my windows closed, I would still have to mute my call because I couldn't hear them talk. It was maddening. And so the whole neighborhood really was not a fan of Alex. And we were doing our best. I mean, I didn't lead this effort, but I did join it, where we were looking to the police to solve this problem for us, right? But the police, they weren't very good at this. Like, Alex knew his way around the police. He knew how long it'd take them to show up, and he knew what he could get away with, and he was really good at it. And the neighbors eventually realized, you know what, the best thing we could do is set up a calling tree, because we realized that the more calls the police get, the sooner they'll come out. So we had a calling tree set up. The first person who called the police would then call the next person on the list, and that person would call the police and then call the next person on the list, and so on. So we'd get better police response. And anyone who is familiar with law of attraction might understand that this didn't actually get us good results. Here we are in battle with this bad guy in our neighborhood, and it didn't make him be a nice guy, and it didn't put an end to the battle. Things just got worse and worse and worse. I remember I was chatting at the fence one day with my neighbor on the other side. Oh my gosh, she ran a daycare. Hello, she had kids at her place all day long. She's responsible for other people's kids. She had a lot of worries going on, and she made a joke one day about how, that vehicle that was just, it was so loud. She made a joke one day. She said, I know, she's Mexican. She said, I know how stereotypical this is going to sound, but I say we slash his tires. We laughed. Oh my gosh, laughter was such an improvement over the vibration that was going on there, because most of it was just battle and hatred and fear and really, really bad stuff. In fact, one day my ex came over. We were chatting, sitting on my front porch, and he could tell I wasn't myself. I'm like, I haven't been getting sleep. And I tell him a little bit about the neighbor. Oh, and he saw the bat that I had behind the bushes. And he's like, what is this about? And I told him, look, my neighbor, he's been making death threats against me and my boyfriend. And one day my plumber accidentally pulled in his driveway, and he came out threatening my plumber with a gun. In fact, did I tell you how one day in the backyard, I heard a gun go off? And my first thought was, good, I hope she shot him. I was hoping his girlfriend killed him. I was in a bad way, I'm telling you. And again, I was sleep deprived. It's my little disclaimer. It wasn't my normal self. So my ex-boyfriend, he hears this and he's like, look, I know someone who can solve this problem for you. Okay, I knew what he meant. I did not need him to elaborate. He goes on to say, and it would cost you about $10,000. And you know what my first thought was, you guys? I'm telling you this so that you understand how much contrast I was experiencing. My first thought was, I have $10,000. I didn't mean it as a joke. I meant it as, oh my God, could that solve my problem? I was in a bad way. One day, Carolyn, his grandma, she's out in her front yard. The sweetest woman you would ever want to meet. I want to repeat that. Nicest woman ever. And I started screaming at her at the top of my lungs that this was all her fault and she needed to do something about it. I mean, seriously, you guys, I had lost it. I was at the very, very, very end of my rope. Okay, so eventually, and I did this routine for a couple months. This wasn't like a couple days. It wasn't a couple weeks. It was probably around 3 months of this pain and misery and suffering routine before I realized that doing battle with Alex was not going to end the battle. I realized that the energy that I was being was perpetuating exactly what I didn't want. And that if I wanted something different, I was going to have to be something different. I was going to have to find different vibrations, because the frustration and the anger and the hatred, I don't think hatred is an exaggeration, that wasn't taking me anywhere good. So I made a commitment to myself. I knew what I wanted, the opposite of what I was experiencing. What I wanted was peace, love, quiet, and appreciation. I just got goosebumps thinking about the day that I realized, oh my word, hello, no wonder nothing can get better. So I wrote down on a sticky note my commitment to new vibrations, because I knew once I found a way to be a new vibration, that the world would have to match it, right? So once I learned how to be peace, quiet, love, and appreciation, then this guy who was everything the opposite of that, he would have to be gone from my world, right? Remember in What the Bleep, they talked about how like oil and water, they zigging and zagging. When you're different vibrations, you can't hang out together. My problem was I had been the same vibration as Alex. I had joined him in his really, really bad vibration. So once I got to good vibrations, I figured one of three things was going to happen. He'd either end up back in jail or in the morgue, and that was perfectly fine with me too, or his girlfriend actually had a place. What were they doing in the backyard in a tent when she actually had a place? I thought maybe he could go live with her. But I knew my job was to be peace, love, quiet, and appreciation before I could experience peace, love, quiet, and appreciation. So that was my new mission. And did you just hear the breath I took? It was quite a mission because I'd been practicing the opposite vibrations for quite a while. I mean, I had the evidence of what happens when you flow that stuff. It just gets worse. So here I am committing to peace, love, quiet, and appreciation. And I practiced that for a while before I actually started to get any traction with it. Like when I'd be on a call and I'd hear that vehicle fire up and I'd have to mute my client and say, just give me a minute. I can't hear you right now. I'll be right back. Instead of letting my blood pressure just boil and tell the story about how mad I was at him and how is it possible the police cannot track him down when he is this freaking loud, instead of that, I'd just like take a deep breath and just let it out and let it be okay. You know what? It's going to be fine. Just a couple minutes. It's fine. And at least he's gone now. You know, there was that plus. So I'd practice that. And at night when he was doing a drug deal, and telling his neighbors or his customers how much he hated his neighbor, big blankety blank, this, that, and the other. When I'd hear him, instead of my old routine of throwing the covers off and stomping around the house in a huff while I was on hold with the police, instead, I would just turn to my boyfriend and I'd be like, oh, that guy, so industrious. Look at that guy's work ethic. Think how much work I could do if I was on crack all day long. Like laughing about it instead of being mad about it. It took some practice, but I started to soften these feelings around it. And when I say practice, I'm talking, it took me weeks, right? This wasn't something that was a couple of days of practicing different vibrations. In fact, one day I was out in the backyard and we had a big bush between our porches in the back. And I heard his dog's chain rattle. And his dog's name was Honey, believe it or not. And I said, how you doing, Honey? And I didn't know it, but Alex was out there with her. And he thought I was talking to him. And what I heard was someone go, okay. And then his screen door slammed. Like I really took him by surprise. He thought I was asking him how he was doing, Honey. I thought that was hilarious. I laughed that he thought I was talking to him. But I think I was laughing. Okay, I was laughing. This was an improvement. It was an improvement. And I still wasn't getting any more sleep, but I was doing my best to commit to peace, love, quiet, and appreciation. I stopped joining the calling tree process, and I just did, wherever I could find a way to feel better about it, I practiced it. Okay, so one day, not too long after this, my phone rings and I could tell from caller ID it's Carolyn, my neighbor. And I'm kind of embarrassed at how I had screamed at her that day. She didn't know what to say to me. I was like a mad woman. I'd lost my mind. And I saw her number on caller ID, so I answered the phone. And I said, I hope I don't cry through this whole story. But I said, hey, Carolyn, how you doing? And it wasn't Carolyn. It was Alex. And he said, Jeanette, I just wanted to say that I realize now what a bad neighbor I've been to you. And I want to ask you, how can I be a better neighbor? God, can you believe it? And you know what I said? I said, Alex, it's not you who's been a bad neighbor to me. I've been a bad neighbor to you. Because I was thinking about how here I was joining the whole neighborhood against him, wishing him dead, literally wishing him dead, wondering if I'd actually make that happen. I mean, talk about being a bad neighbor. I was a bad neighbor. So we had this little mini love fest on the phone where I mean, it was a very different exchange than we had ever had before. It was short, but it was real. That really happened. And I hung up from that call and I was like, whoa, there's something different happening here. My vibrational work is taking hold. And after that, you guys, he started raking my leaves. I didn't tell him how to be a good neighbor. All I did was apologize for being a bad neighbor to him too. But that guy, he got proactive about how to be a good neighbor. He's raking my leaves. When it snowed, he shoveled my sidewalk. We chatted at the fence line like friendly neighbors did. We did. We liked each other. We were chatting like friendly people. In fact, one day we were talking at the fence line and his dog, she saw her chance. She was off her chain and she saw one of my cats and she took off after my cat and Alex took off after his dog like his life depended on it. And in that moment, I knew we had turned a corner. I wasn't worried for my cat. And I knew that my work in changing my vibration, this is how I got to the guy that I thought once I find my way to love, quiet, peace, and appreciation, this guy will have to be gone from my world because he's nothing but hate and anger and everything bad and dark. That guy showed up with love. That guy showed up with peace and quiet. Oh my God, he's still doing his drug deals, but he whispered. He would whisper out there. He'd be like, shh, my neighbor's trying to sleep. And it still woke me up, but I just loved that he was trying to be quiet. Come on, how cool was that? You guys, that commitment to be willing to feel it before it's your reality, this is the heart of conscious creation. It's the heart of it. And my whole experience of Alex was, I'm one of his biggest fans. I moved a while after that. In fact, my boyfriend's answer at the time, he was like, we just got to move. That's all there is to it. But I knew that wasn't the answer because wherever you go, you take your vibration with you. And I had practiced. I hate my neighbor so much that I knew wherever I moved to, I'm going to have another nightmare neighbor because that was my vibration. I knew I needed to change this first. And once I changed it, I didn't feel like I needed to move. I did after a while. I don't know how many months. I don't think I was there quite a year afterwards, but he was a great neighbor for me. But get this. The rest of the neighborhood didn't experience him any differently than I did. How do you like that? It just goes to show we get what we vibrate. And when we are vibrating different things, we'll get different things, even when we are in the same situation. It just boggles my mind to have experienced that. So the takeaways for me in this story are, hello, don't ever shortchange someone again in thinking that I know what they are or aren't capable of. And also that just because I change my vibration doesn't mean that everyone else is going to see it the same way I do. They get to have it their way and I get to have it my way. They can have a nightmare neighbor if that's what they choose. And that's what they chose. So they still had a nightmare neighbor. I got along with Alex just fine. I actually started to feel kind of bad for him sometimes because eventually his grandma did have to, what's it called when you put in a protection order? You know, like he scared her to the point where he wasn't allowed to be there. I feel bad for her. I feel bad for Alex, but I love that I got to have that experience where I didn't require him to change or even leave before I could feel better. I found a way to feel better first, and then I got to feel better with him. And this story, I also love it because of the power of contrast. Like that huge contrast, what that situation taught me about vibration management and conscious creation. Like this guy that I used to think of as my enemy, I can see now, right, on this side of it, that's like he was my best friend to teach me something that I didn't learn through all my other studies of conscious creation. I mean, I sure understood the concepts theoretically, but to live it like that, to just really, truly understand what an inside job it is, I gotta say, that's one of my favorite manifesting stories. I hope you got something from it too. If you're liking this podcast, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave a review on iTunes so others can find their way here too. And thanks for listening and happy manifesting. Bye, everyone.